What it do, Durag Nation? I got sent an early copy of Wuchang Fallen Feathers, the latest Wuxia Soulslike that will unfortunately be compared to Black Myth Wukong. If you got that impression of the game via the trailers and the gameplay demos, I can assure you after putting 40 hours into Wuchang, they are very different games, which is both a good thing and bad. How bad depends on your own preferences. For this review, I'll include gameplay from my playthrough over the last week. This all takes place before chapter 5 in the story, and I'll be avoiding spoilers. Though so far, there isn't really too much to spoil in my experience. The narrative is pretty simple. You play Wuchang, a pirate warrior who has been afflicted by a supernatural illness called the feathering, which causes humans to mutate until they become monsters. One of the symptoms is memory loss, which has affected Wuchang, but she's otherwise fine. Even better, the feathering just makes her even more powerful while she's able to maintain her humanity. You're wandering the land trying to regain your memories and help people as they try to deal with the illness and find a cure. It's a pretty straightforward story, and you uncover more of it by talking to various NPCs. And by talk, I mean listen, because Wuchang does not have any dialogue. One of the comparisons this game will definitely get is to 2024's Stellar Blade, but besides having an attractive female protagonist, a collection of goon-friendly outfits, and the exact same ladder climbing animations, both characters are not very expressive, though at least Eve can talk and conveys her emotions subtly through cutscenes. And if you're expecting those exciting set pieces and cutscenes from Stellar Blade and Wukong, you'll also be disappointed. This game reserves the cutscenes to introduce a boss fight and sometimes to end it, but they are very basic. Most of the game is going to be exploring and combat. And by exploring, I mean wandering around trying to find where to go because there is no map. Instead, you get a compass that is connected to the UI for your item inventory, and it's even more useless than you're imagining. The environments are well designed with unique looking NPCs and enemies, but the game is hilariously linear with invisible walls everywhere and a near complete lack of traversal options. There was one part where I was separated from an enemy by some stacks of bags and a very low wooden fence, but I had to eventually scale an entire building to get around because you can't jump and there is no climbing except on ladders. In the same way, the combat felt limiting to me, though if you're a fan of Dark Souls, which this game seems modeled after, you probably won't mind too much. I personally much prefer the combat in Wukong, Stellar Blade, and even Lies of P. The dodge is basically a small dash in the direction you're aiming for, so no flipping or rolls. This makes it particularly annoying to deal with certain enemies who have much better movement and can fly across the map spamming attacks. Unlike those other Souls-like games, there is no traditional block and parry system, so no watching out for red attacks or anything of the sort. The slowest weapon classes, the axe, longsword, and twin blades, have access to a block on certain weapons you find. Each weapon can hold two abilities, which you can customize at your save points, which is a shrine, but you can only customize one of the two skills, so you often have to choose between a block or an ability that grants their alternative to the block mechanic, clash. Certain weapons can unlock the ability to essentially clash blades with the enemy and negate their damage, though in practice this is inconsistent at best, especially with the punishing stamina costs and how much certain enemies can spam attacks that also can just damage you through the clash or ignore it altogether. The weapons are cool and have interesting abilities, but in practice they seemed mostly useless outside of dealing with the weakest enemies. There didn't feel like much of a difference between a one-handed sword and a giant axe when hitting somebody other than the speed. I felt a lack of impact from the blows, and most of the enemies don't even flinch, and some are immune to knockdowns and knockback. Most attacks are also very slow and clunky unless they are powered by skyborn might, a resource that you gain from completing actions like dodges or landing combos. It took me about 20 hours and a lot of trial and error to feel even remotely powerful, so if you don't have a lot of patience, you will likely bounce off the game much faster. But I stuck through it and didn't feel rewarded. Defeating a challenging boss didn't feel satisfying because as you progress, they're hilariously unbalanced and cheap, which is made worse by the game's sometimes terrible performance. I played on the PS5 Pro and experimented with both the graphics and performance modes. I kept with performance because this isn't a game that was made to wow you with its graphic fidelity, but I still got horrible stutters, which made some attempts to defeat a boss impossible. When you die, only your health base is refreshed, so you have to be careful when using items, but you also don't get stronger because you lose your red orbs, your upgrade materials, upon death, and you can only retrieve them from the spot you died, which doesn't help you in a boss arena. And you can't purchase more healing because of a passive called Madness. You can buy valuable items at shrines at the cost of gaining Madness, which grants you special abilities as a trade-off. But once your Madness is too high, you can't buy any more items, though sometimes a demon lady will appear, and if you beat her, it gets refreshed. But this doesn't happen unless you explore a different area area away from the boss arena. So often the best way to defeat them isn't with skillful interactions, it's just to wear them down with one of the two cheapest strategies in the game: the lifesteal ability of the axe, or the passive skyborn might gain and magic spam of the one-handed sword. A summoning ability would make it easier, and you can unlock an item that lets you summon a warrior to fight with you relatively early on in a boss fight, but you're not allowed to use it again after that, and the game doesn't explain why or tell you the activation conditions. So you have to basically take the risk of having a dead item in your inventory because you don't know if they'll let you summon until you try it. The game also suffers from a common issue in the genre: artificial difficulty, which is when something is added that doesn't make sense and makes the game worse just for the sake of making it harder. You have the usual stuff like items taking a long time to consume, no ability to quickly get up off a knockdown or roll off impact, but you also have stuff like an enemy faction that filled the area with landmines hidden in the snow. Now, it made sense to use them to protect from the monsters roaming around, but these mines were inside their actual camps, scattered around where they're patrolling and where their dogs are roaming. And yes, they accidentally step on them. It's completely irrational, but it's put there to annoy you. There is also no pause function. Sure, you can open your menus and sort through your gear and spells like normal, and I like that you can transmog the gear, but you better do it in a safe place because an enemy will attack you. I even died immediately after turning the game on and loading in. There is no reason for this to be in the game other than to annoy the player, and I really don't like that sort of design philosophy for an already punishing genre. Fortunately, most of this is something that can be fixed, and I hope the developers take the time to further polish the game because it does have a ton of potential. For now, I can't recommend it, mainly because of the performance issues, but if they fix that with a day one patch, I think Dark Souls fans at the very least will enjoy this one a lot because they love pain. But let me know in the comments what you think of Wuchang Fallen Feathers and if you're planning to pick it up.